All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about mathematical properties, and this will prepare you for when we get back to school in January. So the first property I want to talk to you about is the commutative property, and the commutative property as it relates to addition. So in this property, all we're saying is the order of terms does not matter. And when we say does not matter, we're saying it does not affect the sum or the result of our problem. So for example, we could do 2 plus 3 plus 4. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 4 is 9. We could also say 4 plus 2, which is 6, plus 3 is equal to 9. Either way, they are the same. So it does not affect the order or the sum. All right, the commutative property of multiplication is the same idea. So the order of terms, order does not affect the product. Oops, little spelling error there. Sorry, product. All right, so 2 times 3 is 6. Times 4 is 24, or we could do 4 times 3, which is 12, times 2, which is also 24. So again, it didn't matter what order we put these in, they still resulted in the same answer. All right, the associative property is also broken into addition and multiplication. And what we're saying here in the associative addition is that grouping does not determine the sum. So the grouping does not affect the sum. So for example, we could do 2 plus 4 plus 8. And 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 8 is 14. Or we could say, well, instead of doing 2 plus 4 first, we could do 4 plus 8 first. 4 plus 8 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So either way, it is 14, but our grouping didn't change. Same thing with multiplication. The grouping of our terms does not affect the product. Okay, so here we could do 1 times 2 times 4. 1 times 2 is 2, times 4 is 8. Or instead of doing 1 times 2 first, we could do 2 times 4 first, which is 8, and then times 1 is also 8. So we end up with the same solution. All right, so the distributive property, okay, the distributive property is when we take a number outside of our parentheses and multiply it to the inside. So here is an example. So if we have 2 parentheses 3 plus 4, we're saying we're going to do 2 times 3, okay? And then we're going to do 2 times 4, and we're going to add those together because we have an addition sign there, okay? So we're going to take what's on the outside and we're going to distribute it or give it out to everything in the group, okay? Another example could be 4 and then 3 minus 5, okay? That would give us a negative number, but that's okay. Good for an example. 4 times 3 minus 4 times 5. Okay, so we're distributing that number outside of the parentheses. All right, so our next property that we're going to talk about or introduce you to is identity properties of addition and multiplication. So the identity property of addition is the sum of 0 and a number is itself. So what we're saying is anything added to 0 is always going to give it itself back. It's the identity property. So for example, 9 plus 0 is 9. 24 plus 0 is 24. So it's the identity property because we're adding it and we get itself back. Multiplication is the same way, but we're saying that the product of 1 and a number will result in itself. So 8 times 1 is 8. 93 times 1 is 93. Anything times 1 is itself. Okay? Next up is the multiplication property of 0. So the multiplication property of 0 is anything, no matter what number, multiplied to 0 is 0. Okay, so no matter what the number is, 1,433 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. Okay, no matter what it is, if we multiply it to 0, we are going to have 0 as our solution. All right, and the last two properties are inverse properties, inverse of addition and inverse of multiplication. All right, so the inverse property of addition says the sum of a number and its opposite is 0. So if you recall opposites, remember we said like opposites were 4 and -4 because they were the same distance from 0, or 9 and -9 because they're the same distance from 0. -10 and +10, same distance from 0. When we add those two together, we end up with 0. Okay, so 4 plus -4 is 0. 9 plus -9 is 0. -12 plus 12 is 0. Okay, they're the inverse because they're the opposites. And when we add them together, we get 0. And last but not least, the inverse property of multiplication says the product of a number and its reciprocal is 1. So remember what reciprocal means. Reciprocal is when we flip our fraction. Okay, so for example, if we have 3/4, the reciprocal of that would be 4/3. We just flip that fraction around, and that will equal 1, because think about it, 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. Well, 12 over 12 is equal to 1. Another example would be, let's do 4/9. Okay, times the reciprocal would be 9 over 4. Okay, and 4 times 9 is 36. 9 times 4 is 36. 36 over 36 is equal to 1. Okay, this will come in real handy when we start learning about algebra and undoing what we're seeing. Okay, guys, those are the properties that you need to know, and hopefully this will help you when we return back to school. Have a great break.